Why did I become an attorney? That wasn't the plan. When I was at school and throughout my childhood, I wanted to be a doctor. In those days, when one was in standard 7, I think now grade probably 9 in modern language, one had to choose your subject, so I chose all the sciences, which was of course needed for admission to medical school. Luckily for me, and I suppose for the patients that I might have had I become a doctor, my mom took me when I was in standard 9, grade 11, to the University of Stellenbosch, which had a vocational guidance institute there, where they put one through a whole barrage of tests, psychological, intelligence and things of that nature, IQ. And at the end of the day, I was called in by one of the consultants who told me quite bluntly that the necessary philanthropic qualities were not within me to be a doctor, even though he could see that that was my deliberate choice. And he suggested that I look to journalism or law. With hindsight, in fact immediate hindsight, it was very clearly where I belonged. Writing had always been my passion, language had always been my passion, and I was famous at school for being argumentative. Once described by one of my headmasters as being a sea lawyer, basically taking up the cause of anyone in sight who needed a decent argument. The decision was made for me when I went to talk to one of the editors at the Argus to find out about a career in journalism, and discovered that these poor people, well, just remain poor. I mean, the revenue and income of a journalist is not quite, or certainly wasn't, something that excited me then. So law it became, and what a good choice it was. It was exactly where I belong. One doesn't need to be a philanthropist to do this job. In fact, it's probably better that you're not a philanthropist. You don't need to be a quote-unquote nice guy to do this job. In fact, it's best that you be perhaps a little bit of a difficult guy. And all of those qualities were already well entrenched in me. Add to the mix a little bit of obsessive, compulsive need for perfection and order and structure, and it was done. My career was made, and I've loved every single moment of it, and still do. In the beginning, I was in a firm in Cape Town as an article clerk, training in court work, as most lawyers start, and built a very good career for myself as a court lawyer. I became a junior partner of that firm and was building a career. At some stage along the way, I realized that there were limitations in court work. It was difficult for the client, difficult for the law firm. The economy of court work was just difficult. I then also realized that there was another field of law that had really not been properly looked at that time, namely conveyancing. Conveyancing at that time was a secondary function within law firms. It was the place where the attorneys who had kind of washed out of real law were shuffled away to shuffle papers. And I realized that that part of the firm which at that point was a fledgling township, and opened a branch. It was myself and one secretary, and started to do conveyancing with the urgency and structure which I had been trained to do and apply in litigation. Well, of course, it was a revelation. It was a new product in the market. And because it created results which were previously unavailable, it was in demand. And that was the genesis of the firm which is today known as Miltons Matsemela. Others have followed, others have emulated us, which of course is a compliment to us, and they will continue to follow and emulate because we continue to innovate. The job is by no means done. It is not yet as good as it can be. A couple of fundamental philosophies which drive my thinking, and accordingly the people that work with and for me, are first and foremost, accept a transfer instruction as if you were the seller, and as if this is your property, as if the money that is going to come from the sale is your money, and that you need it urgently because perhaps your overdraft is at its limit. Approach the file with that approach. Manage the file with that approach. Drive the file with that approach at all times. Second point, accept that both buyers and sellers have little understanding of the process. Make sure they become part of the process. An informed client is a happy client. Conveyancing should not be done to the client. It should be done with the client. Make sure the client understands what can be expected of the process. Under-promise, over-deliver. And over and above all of that, realize who pays the bills here. It's not the partners. It's the clients who pay the bills here. The salaries are paid by the clients. Therefore, the client is king. The client is always right. Sometimes difficult to apply that last principle. Selling a house, buying a house is an emotional process. It's not just a commercial process. And those emotions sometimes get the better of people, sometimes makes nice people into people who are difficult to deal with. We must accept that. We must cope with that. We must help these people to enjoy the process, to make the process really a memorable one.